I'm going to kind of talk
All right,
about.
let's jump into it. We're live.
Well, I'm going to. Oh, we are live.
I'm bad about doing that. It's
We're
fine.
jumping right in.
It's what happens when you have the controls.
That's right. Well, hi everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Welcome to Queers and Soaps. As always, I'm Tommy, joined
I'm
by
Aaron.
and
I'm
our
Lynn.
recurring guest star, Lynn, is joining us again.
Even though it says something different right here, I'm just promoting the Twitter feed that's out there.
CBS Knox Landing, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Fans of the show might be curious to check that page out, is all I'm getting at.
Well, I know there's a lot of excitement with this episode. I know Tommy, Lynn, and a lot of Twitter people are probably thanking the soap gods that Aaron finally finished season 3 so we could talk about it.
Who finished season 3 first? Because I know you guys are both watching at the same time.
Wasn't me.
Well,
I think you did because I watched the last episode today twice because I fell asleep.
There we go.
I'm a procrastinator.
I woke up at the end scene and then I was like, I don't know what happened in the episode, so I had to restart it.
So overall with this season, one of the big things that happened was they did new opening credits. And what are your thoughts?
I liked it. There's one, okay, and this is just me as someone who does like editing and things like that. There's one picture in the little sequence that doesn't move at all. It's like the one with Karen when she's got the like mime paint on. That picture is just still. And it's the only one that does it. All the other ones move. It bothers me.
Right.
And I'm just like, could we not get the clip that moves? I mean, was it?
And
all right, we'll play our opening credits, which also don't move, and we'll get started.
That's different. They're not supposed to move. Ours move the way they're supposed to move.
That's right.
That's true.
And I even see them. I don't know about Tommy, but I do see them, Aaron.
I actually did see him this time. I must have a good internet connection tonight.
So, of course, what was interesting about the opening credits at Knots Landing is they pulled the wool over the viewer's eyes, didn't they?
Yes. So we pick up from last season with Sid's car accident.
Right.
And he's still in the opening credits.
Exactly.
But he's alive. Not so well, but alive.
So we'll hear some stats for our listeners. This episode 1's called The Vigil, and it's written by John Flechette, who plays Richard.
Oh, good job, Richard. I like
exactly. And so basically the storyline's opening with with Sid driving over a cliff, and he's left paralyzed. So what are your thoughts about some of the things that happened and how Gary comes home and tells Karen Sid's in the hospital and off she tears off like a trucker bat out of hell?
Michelle,
I always like that her initial reaction is he dead? And she's just very like stone cold, is he dead?
Stoic.
Michelle Lee was just magnificent. Hats off, applauds.
Right.
I don't know if she won awards for it, but she should have. She played that part so well.
She was very good. And
I felt like I had just lost my husband.
Did you?
Knock on wood.
Yeah, right.
I'm married now.
They're kind of trying to keep the severity of the situation from the kids. He is paralyzed. He actually goes into a coma for the second half of this episode.
Correct.
But he wakes up, and in television back then, that was probably like such a okay, Sid's gonna be okay. He woke up from his coma.
Right. That episode ended that way, and you really kind of thought, okay, he's going to be okay. There's just going to be some time, but Sid's not going anywhere. Again, he's in the opening credits. We're just led to assume this was back in the days of pre-internet, pre-spoiler, all that type of stuff. So I do remember watching that live and thinking, he's going to be okay. It's going to take a little bit of time.
I can't remember if it was the first episode or the second episode where Richard brings lunch for Karen and they kind of sit outside in the hallway.
It was the first one that he brought her that breakfast, which I thought Aaron, who's not a Richard fan, must have been a little like, oh.
He has moments.
course.
But overall, I'm just like, 2 good moments does not make you a good person.
I know. That's why I flip flop on him too, because he has moments, especially with Karen.
Right.
I feel like Karen. I don't know who's older, but Karen kind of acts like the big sister to Richard.
She seems protective of him, especially this season. We see that bond start to happen. But I think at the same time as we're going to start to see Karen's life kind of spin out of control, we'll see that with Richard.
Did anybody else think about Annie and like was she notified about her father?
Oh, I still wonder about her. It drives me crazy when they bring one episode. You have this character who's just, I mean, she could have led a huge part of that first season with all her problems, and then boom, gone.
Even if they would have just recasted her, they should have brought her back.
True, that was kind of a big gap there, if you will. Let's, that being said, it's episode 2. I can't remember who it's written by. As somebody who's always with the show, it's not one of the actors on there. It's the critical condition, but this is kind of the continuation where now Sid's starting to become paralyzed, though it looks like he was on the upswing that we always see happen with people in the hospital sometimes, and then all of a sudden they start having some bad days and he's losing that movement.
The first 3 episodes seem like a 3-parter. It really does.
True.
Yeah, it does, because I didn't want to skip to the 4th episode because and then he's offered this chance to have a surgery, corrective surgery, but there's only a 40% chance that it'll go well.
Right. And
Karen doesn't want to take that chance, and he's kind of like, if you don't sign it, I'll sign it with my teeth.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta feel for Sid. I mean, who would want to? Most people don't want to live like. I mean, at this point, you're just
he does the job. He's very physical in his job and things like that. He just couldn't imagine that for himself.
He still has a younger son, or his kids are still young, and then of course, I mean, him and Karen are still very young,
right?
So they had a lot of life left in their marriage. So I mean, I understand him wanting to be like, let's give it a go. I'd rather try than.
I also felt for Abby. I think sometimes we forget that Abby is Sid's sister, especially in the later years.
Yep.
Because we don't really mention Sid too much.
It's because she's too busy stealing everybody's man.
But meanwhile, her kids have been stolen, so she's going through the trauma of not having her children and not knowing where they are. And
I felt for her there. That was, oh my gosh, so wrong.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was good. It was good to see that vulnerable side to Abby a little bit, because maybe that explains the actions that she kind of spirals out here the rest of the season too.
I'm still kind of mad at her for the end of season 2 when she kind of threw Gary under the bus and tried to play innocent.
Yeah. To Sid, how she said, I didn't know anything about these bad guys. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Gary even covered for her. So Gary's feeling a lot of guilt and goes and sees Karen at the hospital, which again, another great scene with Michelle Lee playing Karen. And she's like, are you just going to up and leave? What am I supposed to do? My husband's in the hospital facing life-changing surgery, and you're just going to go because you've got a guilty conscience? And then she hugs him. And I'm like, so the moment, she does exactly the opposite. You think she's going to tear at him and yell at him and push him away, and instead she pulls him into a hug.
Yeah.
I love Michelle Lee. She's my favorite. She's my favorite thing about Knox Landing.
Nice.
And then
okay, so just to go off track for like a second. Sure. Whenever I watch Titanic, which it's been a while, I'm always like, maybe the boat won't sink this time, and having a great time, and then midway through they hit the iceberg and I'm like, son of a bitch. Right. But and even though I know Sid dies,
right?
Spoiler
when he goes into surgery, there's this part of me that is still like, well, maybe he'll make it out this time.
Oh, I know. I was totally having those moments because I was like, okay, I researched this. I know he did. Or he leaves.
I still wouldn't say it to Aaron, even though he'd like text me and be like, I know he dies. And I'm like, everybody knows, but still,
I'm like,
not gonna
I
say
know he's not married to Karen in the future because I remember curly-haired man. So that's how I think of that. So I knew he was dying, but part of me was still like, don't die, Sid. Please don't die.
So I
Well,
thought,
you really liked it.
I know, probably because he's the only one that didn't cheat on his wife.
Sid's got a
That's
pretty
true. I was
strong
like, Kenny
moral
didn't, but
compass. He's the dad figure in that cul-de-sac too. You know what I mean? So I can
Like-
see that. That's why I thought it was really good. His taped monologue that Sid did
Oh
to
my
Karen
God,
before
break my
going
heart.
in, and how that cascaded on the last like 5 minutes of the show. They really didn't need dialogue. They just needed Sid's voiceover. And you see Karen see the doctor and walk down that hallway, and it's haunting, really, is what it is.
Mm.
and then
Those
the
hospital
family knows
scenes,
they start crying.
those hospital scenes when it's like you got the doctor and they're all like, they always pull their little hat off, and it's like,
Right?
they start falling, just, oh, it's so sad.
That
Every time.
was television 40 years ago, you guys, which is amazing because I've even read things online this week that said, shame on you people for saying nothing great existed on television until The Sopranos, which I do love The Sopranos, but it's like Knott's had some great gripping storyline.
Oh my
writing.
gosh, their
Amazing.
storylines are so good. Well, unless you're Kenny and Ginger. The storylines are so good.
Right? It pulls you in, without a doubt.
I mean,
So the
I'm
aftermath.
hooked. I was just gonna say, I'm hooked on a show from the early '80s. That's got to say something.
Right.
So the aftermath, there's some pretty gripping moments in that one also.
Yes.
I always feel so bad for Eric when he's sitting in Sid's car. And Karen's just trying to stay busy. She's going to work. She's selling things. She's selling Sid's car, which Eric didn't really appreciate.
Michael wants to know when Karen's coming home all the time because he's nervous about also losing his mom, like he just lost his dad.
It's crazy how grief causes you to do things you would never think you would do.
But yet Karen, she's still got the big balls, and she looks at Abby and goes, "Abby, you're fired," and she's gone, just like that.
I love
she hugs her.
Abby.
She hugs her and says, "We'll be here for you. The kids will be here for you. You're fired."
Right? Your children are still gone, but I don't want you here at Knott's Landing Motors. See ya.
For the time period, or for the time for Karen to take over her husband's company and run it, and was like, "No, I want to learn everything I can." I was like,
that was her way to hold on to some form of Sid. You could tell that whole episode she's struggling to hold it together. That's why I love it when this returning customer comes in and asks for Sid, and she has to say, "My husband's passed away. So and so can help you." And she walks in the office, probably at a desk where Sid would sometimes sit, and there sits Gary. Yeah. And what was your impressions on what happened next?
All I know is if I was Karen in that office, I'd be in a puddle on the floor of my own tears.
Right.
I get why she reacted the way she did. Gary's feeling this guilt, and rightfully so. He was heavily involved in it. And Karen, there's got to be a piece of her that does blame him. And there's a scene later where Gary goes home, and he said she finally let it out. She hit me. And I was like, she hit you.
And then to my surprise, Gary, who can be like, runs away from trouble, he gets up from the kitchen table and he's like, "I'm going back to work." And Val looks at him and he goes, "She hit me. She didn't fire me." And I thought that was a great line. Again,
that was a good.
So good. And then ironically, Karen comes to apologize and Gary's already gone and she has to face Val, and the two of them can't even really establish eye contact for the first couple of minutes because it's so awkward between them.
Yeah. So she has that kind of breakdown moment. Ginger has a baby.
She does have her baby. Natural childbirth and all.
Okay, hang on. I got to bring up something very important.
I had to.
No. Aaron Molly. What kind of name is Aaron Molly? Excuse me if your name is Aaron Molly. I am so sorry. But really, it doesn't rhyme whatsoever. Aaron Molly.
I wonder how many kids were named Aaron Molly after their parents saw this on Knott's Landing.
Probably a lot. And I'm like, I am sorry. There are probably a lot of Abby's and Vals out there. You can always kind of tell when the favorite TV shows of a certain generation. When I taught a film class, and I was talking about, One Tree Hill and how I would name my characters after how you get these connections with the characters. And this kid goes, "Oh yeah, my mom named me after one of the characters of her favorite TV show." I was like, "Oh, what's that?" He said, "Zach." I went, "Zach." He's like, "Saved by the Bell." I was like, "Dear Lord, your mom named you from not possible. How are you in college?" Yeah, my classroom. You ain't old enough. So, but yeah, sorry, that's my rant about Aaron Molly.
No, it's okay. Tommy, you were probably going to say something about Ginger having the baby too.
I was just going to say they asked Karen to be the godmother, and when Karen holds the baby, she has a crying meltdown.
Again, that had to be between that episode that aired before with Sid's death and then what Karen went through on trying to hold it together on this one had to been the 2 episodes that they were looking at for Emmy nominees, because that was the only time Michelle Lee was nominated for this role. And, it would have been fantastic if she won. She hit it out of the park, but it was a circle of life moment is what I looked at it as. It's like, she's dealing with Sid dying and people die all the time. And now here's new birth and a new life and stuff like that. And it just kind of came full circle and overwhelmed her.
What is Ginger and Kenny's last name?
Ward.
Thank you. I spaced
Aaron Molly Ward. It just sounds awesome.
He can't get past Aaron Molly.
A name's very important.
Oh, that's funny.
Bless you, child.
All right, so episode 4 was the homecoming, I believe. And Lily Mae is back.
She brings the best thing to the show this season, and that's the gospel truth. I can't stop saying it. It is everything I needed.
I love it.
I know this is kind of skipping further into the season, but in the last episode, she says to the kids, "You be sweet," and I like that. I was like, I'm gonna start saying that. You be sweet.
She's got a bunch of unique deliveries. You know what I mean? Isms.
My husband, I have to say that now because I got a husband. Yep. I'm one of those people. Got a husband. I'm shocked he didn't want to divorce. Well, we weren't married at the time, but I went around the whole night saying, "And that's the gospel truth."
That's funny.
I don't care. It could have been like, "Are you ready for dinner?" Yes, and that's the gospel truth.
Oh,
yeah, I just
bless John's heart.
So yeah, Lily Mae returns with her auto harp, and apparently she never left town 2 years ago.
Right. And then she ends up, stopping somebody from stealing somebody's purse or cart or whatever. And
then the whole cul-de-sac sees her on the news. And Val's just like, of course.
Trying to serve some food to her guests and oops.
Yep.
Is that the scene that's the opening credits of the whole cast where they're sitting in the living room and they all are looking at the TV? Is that that's the scene?
Correct. So that's what they did for the technical buffs out there. They had a shot of the neighbor sitting on the couch and then the neighbor sitting on the chairs. And then when that ended on the opening credits where it's scrolling from left to right. And then when they took Don Murray out of the opening credits, because they did that right after the episode where he left, they added one more shot of a wide shot of all of them sitting in Val's living room. So,
and that's the gospel truth.
So, I don't know. This is kind of like a filler episode for me because I don't really love Lily Mae. I like her sometimes, but she meddles a lot, and I don't like it when she gives Val bad advice.
Well,
that's clearly bad.
Real quick, when has she not given Val bad advice?
Exactly.
I think they had to kind of bring...
the only good advice... Oh, well, we can't get there yet. Sorry.
I think they had to bring Lily Mae back, though, to make, and I love her, Val just a little bit more interesting, because until this season... Val really didn't have a storyline. She was a housewife in that house every day making apple fritters, and that was about
taking care of the whole cul-de-sac, all their kids.
Yeah,
I was telling John, I was like, I think Val is just the neighborhood nanny,
babysitter,
while getting her GED
and writing a book.
So bringing Lily Mae in there and having her shoplift, and those guys have to take her back in was kind of an interesting thing. Of course. Ring, Richard's phone up, and he's got to go and put his lawyer hat on again and dole out some advice. I don't know if any of these neighbors ever pay him or not. That's probably why he's got the financial.
All I know is I need a neighbor who's a lawyer, so I'm be like, "Hey, you my Richard now." If you don't know what that means, watch Knox Landing.
Exactly.
There's towards the end when she like is throwing a fit and leaving because it's never gonna work. Well, actually, rewind. I feel like the neighbors try to be sweet to Lily Mae because she's Val's mom, and they kind of know she's making up stories, but they just kind of humor her. And Val is the only one that is visibly like rolling her eyes and just like, there she goes again, making up stories.
Exactly. She knows what her mom is doing. So
yeah. So at the end, she goes to leave town, and Val goes running after her, saying, "You're my mama. You're the only one I got." And Lily Mae kind of is like, "Well, we'll give it a shot." Like it was her idea. She's like, "Oh."
She's like a different version of Abby when it comes to manipulation.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
Lily Mae could be manipulative
Oh yeah.
when she wants to. So this is one of my favorite episodes is episode 5.
Nice. The surprise.
The surprise. Because
Which is when Abby locates her kids again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and she kind of seduces her ex-husband into getting her kids back.
She had me fooled.
She was working it, wasn't she?
I was fooled
from the get-go.
There's a scene where after they sleep together, the way she words something about him moving back in because it'll be confusing for the kids, and she's like, whatever you think is best. Like she's trying to make it so that she isn't at fault. It's his decision.
Yep.
And
she's making him think he's got all the power. She's making him think that he's got all the power because he did do a big power move by taking the kids away. So part of me has to think Abby had been planning what if that entire time, and she turned the plan and engaged it right away when she found out where they were.
I feel like she did that too with the books because she was making the books where only she could read them.
Right.
Yeah.
So they had to bring her. They had to bring her back.
Well,
yeah.
So
I like when Karen saw them with the kids come back, and then she saw Jeff, and she's like, "What's going on here?" Like she's being protective, and Abby's like, "Don't mess up my plan. Shut up, Karen. Mind your business.
Mind your business."
I like the actress that played Jeff's mom. And she's been in a few other things from back in the time. I can't remember, but you could just tell she was very uptight and stoic and probably didn't like Abby. But if my son wants to remarry her again, they were just blind to it. So it was funny that Karen and Val and Lily Mae went to the Justice of the Peace or whatever to watch him get married and then see him get served with papers instead.
Was it a restraining order?
I think it was a restraining order that she took out on him and said, "Don't ever come near again," or blah, blah, blah. You'll be arrested, yada, yada, yada.
I thought
one of my favorite lines.
Go for it, Tommy.
Is, he hurt me. Nobody does that.
Yep.
That's right there. I was like, ooh, damn, girl. I was like, because he was excited, full of life, full of hope. He had his family. And then it's like, for just a moment, you forget he had kidnapped their children and tortured her, and then you're like, oh well, he did kind of deserve that, didn't he? Okay, next episode.
Exactly.
The next one's called One of a Kind, and it's Karen's ex-boyfriend comes to town.
Yes.
Did we like this episode? I think I liked it because it had me questioning if Diana was Sid's daughter.
I thought this episode too. Also, if that helps Aaron refresh your memory.
Huh? Oh no, this is the one with the weekend at Bernie's guy.
Right, I forgot that.
Oh,
that's who plays Karen. So the whole time, all I'm seeing is
Dead Bernie.
Dead Bernie.
Oh, funny.
I don't know. He just kind of creepy to me.
I think this whole entire season, whomever they threw in front of Karen as a possible love interest, it was bad because they knew they were going to take their time the whole season and wait until season 4 before they really introduced someone they're going to fix.
Well, that one guy wasn't bad that she stole from Abby. Well, Abby neglected and Karen just kind of.
Yeah, but he was a little bit too plain and vanilla, perhaps.
I didn't mind Karen with original Gary.
OG Gary?
Yes. I was like, okay, I could see this.
Right.
And then, he said, they talked about coming back in the spring. As soon as she started dating someone else, I was like, well, what about OG Gary? We're just gonna
I know.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's get those
Jumping
things
ahead.
out while you're thinking of them. We're kind of going in the order for the audience's benefit, but it's okay. We're gonna bounce once in a while too.
So this is also the Christmas episode, which I had forgotten that Knots even did Christmas episodes.
Right.
And Richard, he had a sweet moment. He bought Laura a new car, and then her boss came with an even more expensive car. I felt bad for Richard.
I felt bad for him. I felt bad for him there. I did. I gave him a pass there. But then he doesn't. I don't know what he does a good thing, and then he does a Richard thing. And I'm just like, dude, I just liked you for 2 seconds.
And then
get to go Richard it up.
In 1981, it was lavished by a car. In 2021, it's lavished by someone a car. It's kind of surprising that this boss did this. Obviously, this boss definitely liked Laura a lot. That was an incredibly generous gift, no matter how well she's doing at her job or not.
Yeah, the car was a lot better than
something that flooded over from season 2. Wasn't his wife or now ex-wife implying that there was something going on between them in season 2? So Richard, I remember that.
Yes.
And also, at one point, there was a different actor playing Scooter.
I think
and
you're
then
right.
the original came back.
Yeah.
Because I remember he had like this weird mustache, the second guy.
Funny. This is also the episode where Lily Mae makes Val the quilt of many
patchwork.
Colors. Yes, the patchwork quilt.
After she tells Gary how much she hates patchwork.
And then Gary's all
shut.
And then she gets it, and Gary just looks at her like, because she's trying to be sweet, and she's just like, "Oh my god, I love it."
And hugs her mama. Oh, mama.
Thanks, mama.
Oh, sweet pea.
So we find out that Diana is Sid's because we're looking at pictures of Sid's family, and Diana looks exactly like somebody, grandmother, great grandmother. I don't know.
Right. Karen just chooses not to tell the ex-boyfriend, to give him some sort of happy feels at Christmas time and leave it at that, since he's going to go back away. So
my only thing is the writers then they made it seem like they wanted to, that guy and Diana were really flirting. And even he kind of thought, I'm like, wait, you think it's your daughter, but you're still kind of flirting?
Well, I think he was trying to get close to her because he was thinking of her as a daughter versus she was looking at him as an older, more experienced man. Like, what can he do for me? And his life is so glamorous.
Well, yeah, but for some reason, Karen's kids all have this thing when it comes to Abby flirts with Eric.
They match up with the wrong people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird.
So the next episode is Mistaken Motives, and that's the one with Gary number 1.
Wait a minute. You're jumping ahead. What happened to Secrets?
Secrets?
Which is episode 7, right? Where Abby is kind of needling Karen because she's got to go back and help with the books at Knots Landing Motors.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I did skip one. Secret.
Which this is also, in my mind, a filler episode. But what's unique about this one, this is another episode written by John Flechette, who plays Richard. So he wrote this episode as well, too. This was kind of the yin and yang between Abby and Karen we see, basically, is what I felt this whole episode was kind of about. As well as seeing Richard, he was entertaining clients. This was the first we see of him hiring the call girls and stuff like that for his business. You know, he's kind of getting pushed.
Which he got through Kenny. He got the connection through Kenny.
Yep, exactly. Kenny. Woo! There's your resource in the neighborhood.
So they're just, as they take care of the baby, just, oh yeah, I got numbers of, you know, that kind of thing for you.
Yeah, he looks and he's like, I'll talk to you later about it.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, I think we summed it up there. There wasn't much to it. We can move on, but I was just kind of like, that was a filler episode, really.
It was like
there was some, I do want to talk about the Richard storyline because there was some cringy moments for me in that storyline.
Yeah.
With the call girls, one of them was like, she was like, I really like sushi. Like, it was like this like thing. And then she said she likes the California roll. I'm like, that's not sushi. And it was just very cringy. Like, sushi was like this like thing that nobody eats. And I don't know, it just felt very cringy.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if it was this episode or the Christmas one, but Scooter had a line where he said somebody was 39 and legs like Bruce Jenner, and I was like, ooh, that's an age well.
Ooh, I kind of missed that one, but yeah, it was probably was in there. Oops.
But yeah, back to secrets. I like that Laura kind of stood up for herself, and she didn't believe Richard that he wasn't having an affair because he has cheated on her before.
Right.
Right in front of her, pretty much.
Right. With Abby.
And she confronted Abby about it. So like it's public knowledge. And yet she still stayed.
Again, it started, I guess, if anything, considering that episode was written by John Flechette, who plays Richard, he again was building that Richard narrative and showing the audience how Richard and Laura are just falling apart because Richard basically himself is falling apart. He can't handle how his job's not going the direction he wants it to. His wife is becoming more successful, and she's almost becoming very independent of him, and he's just not happy about it.
Yeah. So now mistaken motives.
There you go.
This is the one when Erin Molly will not stop crying.
It's because the name. She's upset about her name.
And I do like the scene where Lily Mae
call her Erin. No, they're gonna call her Erin Molly.
This is also the one where Karen meets the widower, and it's played by the original OG Gary that was on the beginning of season 2 of Dallas.
I really like that for it to be in the 80s. They were talking about going to support groups to try to talk to one another.
Right.
I thought that was good.
I like that they both kind of broke out laughing together.
Right.
Oh, that would have totally been me.
Like it was so ridiculous.
That would have totally been me, and I would have felt so bad, but that would have been me.
The favorite part of this episode for me, I think, and I kind of teased and poked Erin about it, is I'm like, hey, did you enjoy that Lily Mae singing? Because that was when Val had everybody over to the house, and Lily Mae does her hair all up curls, and she has to warble away, and it was like everybody sitting there. Abby's like clapping, Richard is like looking for her, reaching over at Val, like, I'm sorry.
I did like how Abby was like she was like, oh.
I feel
and even
so
Karen
bad
was like, she thought it was over, and she was like,
I feel so bad for Lily Mae. She just wants to make her dreams come true so much.
It's the gospel truth.
But like I said, they all humor her, and Val's the only one sitting there rolling her eyes.
However, say what you want about Lily Mae, but she gets what she goes after what she wants. She gets in the recording studio.
She was trying to get Kenny's attention, and she does eventually get in that recording studio.
When she's all back
when he looks
there,
up and sees her in between the two backup singers, just like singing along.
and she's I was like, yes, Lily Mae, yes.
But yet again, here's OG Gary trying to put his arm around Karen while they're listening to Lily Mae sing, and Karen, she wasn't ready yet. You know what I mean? She again pushed him away, and I'm like, ooh, this is kind of like strike 2 of a different guy trying to get in her orbit, and it's not working.
Well, it did feel a little soon.
Right. Diana was not happy about this, and here's where we're seeing, I like to yell a lot, Diana come out, basically.
When does Diana not yell? She could just be saying, I love you, Mom, and she yells it. I'm like, girl, when she said, I'll be away at college next fall, I was like, thank God.
So the next episode is the Rose and the Briar. And that's the one where Lily Mae meets Jackson Mobley, who is another basically con artist like her. And they both have these tall tales about how famous they are.
There is not a single gospel truth in either one of their stories.
No.
Not a one.
Never trust a man in a fedora, I guess, is what the lesson is here.
Never trust a man you meet in the park telling you stories about. You're like, oh, you're a music producer? Why are you just chilling?
And they go to Vegas to become famous and almost get married.
I'm like, she met him for 5 minutes and they hopped on a bus and head to Vegas? Okay. What?
Well, I mean, that's what Vegas is known for.
I guess so. I'm just thinking of her. Isn't she supposed to stay at Gary and Val's and can't leave the perimeter of the cul-de-sac, basically, with her parole?
That Hey, it's what
Um,
he gets for thinking just because her daughter's married to a Ewing that she gonna have money.
You know,
this is the first episode that Abby kind of overtly flirts and is scheming for Gary. The seeds are being planted. It's always kind of been like an underlying flirtation,
yep,
but she kind of manipulates Val into volunteering him to go to Olivia's father-daughter night.
Mhm.
exactly. And
She's
she
like,
doesn't.
Richard can't
She
go and
blatantly,
Gary can't go. And she's like, why can't Gary go? Gary could go.
she blatantly does it right in front of Val, and
Mhm.
Val's just
And
like,
she's like, oh, he wouldn't mind.
yeah,
And then it's like, don't we look like a wonderful family?
Yeah, that
right.
end scene. And then Lily Mae's like, I'd keep an eye on her.
Mhm. Lily Mae's got Abby's number pretty quick. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
This was an episode too that was kind of hard to see because Richard was just starting to become unusually more cruel to Laura too.
Oh my god, a little bit.
Yeah.
So Laura, I think she finds out about what Richard's been doing with the prostitutes, and she runs to Scooter only to find out that he's gone back to his wife.
Right.
And then the next episode is the Three Sisters, which is not one of my favorite episodes.
Again,
I enjoyed it though.
it was a one-off, definitely. I mean, it was like if you had just turned on the TV and that was the only Knots Landing you saw, you wouldn't have had to know the plot happening before or after because that was so just singular.
I just love the whole like girls kind of trip or girls' night element to it.
None of the men were in this episode from the cast, if you didn't notice that or not, too. It was all the women.
Yeah. I don't know. I've said this to Aaron before. I don't like it when a show kind of goes off of what it is. Like, I like Supernatural, but if that's not what you are, don't do that. Tell me what you're going to be, and then I'll watch it.
Right.
And that's
like
just
if
not
the Bold and
fun.
Beautiful just has a ghost storyline, you'd be like, what? That's not what this is. Yeah.
Ironically, there was some strange, plug your ears, foreshadowing, Aaron, in this episode, or at least an audience member on a talk show pointed this out. Now, it's nothing bad that you don't already know, but like Val is the one that saw the three little girls or two little girls. And then she ends up having twins later. You know what I mean? So it was like some weird connection that she sees these three kids, and Val eventually has three kids herself. This was also the start of, is Val a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs?
I love when Val gets a little kooky.
It works. So yeah, it was an okay episode, but nothing that I choose to sit down and watch again. But if I'm watching the season, I'll give it the look.
Yeah, I usually skip it, or if I try to do a Knots rewatch because I always end up getting burned out because I just go really hard. But I usually start around like episode 16 of season 3, and I usually get burnt out around season 6.
Got it.
So the next one is Power Play, and this is when the methanol story kind of starts.
I'm so bored with that.
It made me think of New Dallas because wasn't Christopher trying to sell methanol?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it's very
or something like that.
Poignant, if you will, at the time too. Yeah,
I'm like, this is Knox Landing. This isn't Dallas. Next, yeah.
This is the start of Val really starting to resent that Gary and Abby are having a joint venture and spending so much time together too.
I would have been mad too.
So this, I feel like, is when Gary starts to show a little bit more of his Ewing traits here because he's dealing with business and money and he's ambitious about all this type of stuff. So we're seeing a little combination here because to me, Gary's kind of a little bit JR and he's a little bit Bobby. He's a little bit JR in the fact that he likes his money. He likes his power. He wants to kind of have that control. He also likes his women. But then he's also a little bit like Bobby where he's got a very big soft spot for Val and for Lucy and feels a lot of guilt and things like that too. So it's interesting. I felt this was a good story to kind of flush Gary out a little bit more too, and it explains some of the dynamic that he has the rest of the season.
I just wish.
And Abby kind of plays on that, on that ambition for money and power.
Yep.
And
she sees it.
For all intents and purposes, it's a high for him. He's an addict, and this is a vice. That rush that Abby is giving him, that rush that he's not getting from Val.
And Val's kind of saying something to Karen. She's got some suspicions, and Karen kind of blows it off, and she just says, well, Abby is just Abby. But meanwhile, this is the first time that Gary and Abby actually kissed, happened in this episode too. So this was like the start of the spark where it's starting to build.
Yeah. So the next episode is Possibilities. And Richard and Laura.
This was written by Kenny and his real life sister.
Well, he should have written himself a better storyline. In 3 seasons, I know nothing about them besides record producer, teacher, got a baby.
That was it. Cliff notes.
This is the last guy she dates this season, right?
This is the one where you're right. Richard's having a poker party, and Karen gets set up with a guy that's been invited to this poker party. And then we see this guy around now for a few episodes.
He's around for a few episodes.
This is also the episode, this Possibilities, which is kind of funny that, it was written by Kenny, because this is the one where Ginger's got a little bit of a storyline. This is where she records this bad song that we got to hear sing like 3 times throughout the episode.
The montage of her practicing it, singing it, and then singing it in the studio.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, it's just
so
like
Karen and this guy
on
had
the
nothing in common.
Huh?
Say it again, Tommy.
Karen and this guy never had nothing in common.
He wasn't bad looking.
Don't even know what they had in common, though. You're right. I can't really pinpoint it to anything. I can't even remember what he did.
They had friends in common.
One thing she took away from that relationship was onions on hamburgers. She said she'll never eat another hamburger without onions.
Right.
And she basically is like, if you're ever in town, I think, look me up or whatever.
Right. Exactly. Funny. Let's go to episode 13, Reunion. This is one with Jessica Walter guest starring on there as Karen's old college roommate, who's now a famous fashion
I can't believe
designer.
I didn't know that was her. I
can't believe you didn't know that either. Funny. It's okay.
And I don't, usually if I see somebody I recognize, I go on IMDb and I look up everything. But I don't know. You know who she reminded me of? Jane Elliott. But I knew it wasn't Jane Elliott. So that's why I didn't do it.
See, and you watched the new 90210, so I would have really thought you would have recognized her.
I thought she looked familiar. I don't know. I guess I didn't care enough to look it up. But then when he said it was Jessica Walter, I was like, oh my God, it is.
I love the end part of this where there's a fashion show and everybody in the cul-de-sac gets to be in the fashion show, including Lily Mae with her big old wig on her head.
Bless Lily Mae's heart.
But like Abby comes out with a big thing with the things hanging off the arms, and she's spinning around, and Gary's kind of slyly looking at her, and meanwhile Richard's looking at Gary going, oh, I know that look. Been there, done that.
Yeah, right. So this is Karen's college friend, I believe.
Yes.
Right.
Who in some ways has always kind of been jealous of Karen's family life.
I feel like they've always competed.
It's almost like she's trying to steal her daughter from her. Because she's like, you'll come to New York and we'll go to Paris.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little annoyed at Diana because she announces to the boys that they're moving to New York before Karen even does.
Yeah, she was definitely being a little more selfish. But again, at the same time, you got to realize she's still probably reacting to her dad passing away. So
they called her out about you like it because, it's good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so she freaked out about Gary number 1 trying to date Karen, but she was kind of more okay with the second guy, the one that Karen didn't have anything in common with, because they had a talk, and she said that one day, she will start dating,
right? Because
what did she say? Daddy showed me what love was, and I want to feel that again for somebody else.
I forgot about that.
So, yeah. Because Karen's still young. She's probably in her late 30s, early 40s.
I'd say so. I'd say she's probably late 30s.
I remember in the first season where she had that little thing with the teacher, like the third episode.
Right.
She said something about being late 30s.
Yeah.
So the next episode is Cricket, and I don't really care for this one either.
Filler.
Next.
Ironically, these two people, Aaron, sadly, you're going to get to see them again. This wasn't the end, but it'll go by quick next time. But basically, yes. For the audience's sake, this is Val's former boyfriend who's got a stepdaughter who's a little bit of a brat and heathen, and he comes to visit Val and takes off and leaves her there, and then she causes chaos. I love the scene, though, with that Cricket, like, hustling all the kids in the neighborhood, and she's playing, like, cards or whatever out in the garage and taking all of Michael's money and everything and taking Olivia's stuff and Abby's earrings, and it was kind of clever, you know.
I didn't mind the ex-boyfriend. The kid just got on my nerves.
But the kid went back, and then that was it. So a very contained episode.
Yeah. And once again, who's the person in the neighborhood taking care of the kid?
Val. Of course. Val. Yeah. I know. That's why it's good on this next episode, which is a good one. Best Intentions, episode 15, was surprisingly written by Kenny. And this is the one where Val's been writing her book, and Lily Mae is reading it, and Abby gets her claws on it, and she tries to send it off to a publisher to see if there's an interest, as well as this is where we find out and learn that Laura is pregnant, and it's Richard, even though she maybe for a second thought it was her bosses or Scooters or whatever. And Richard starts to turn around a little bit, or he's trying to, because he's happy about another baby. But Laura is not happy about it at all.
Does she tell him in this episode?
She does tell him in this episode. She tells Karen first, and then Karen pushes her to tell Richard, because she wasn't going to do it, because she was really considering having an abortion without even telling him.
Okay, so yes. So I think she even tells Richard she was considering having an abortion, and he slaps her, and I do not like her. That is one thing I do not like about these older shows, is when they show the men slapping their wives around.
I was ready for her to slap him. I was like, girl, get a glass of water or something.
Yeah, I know. That's why you guys, when I did our little 30-second trailer clip that you did to promote the show out there, I first had that in there. I had him slapping her, and I was like, no. And I changed it to her being that frustrated look on her face, because I'm like, there's 3 slaps in this trailer. One of them's Karen slapping Gary. That's okay. The other one is going to be Val slapping Abby. That's okay, but we don't need to see Richard slapping Laura. And it was, again, it's probably another strong reason why you've got an unlike for Richard, Aaron, but it was tough seeing that.
Yeah. And then you see the scene after where he's apologizing because he says he's never done that and he's so sorry. You could see her inner turmoil just on her face. She's not looking at him. She's kind of crying, and she's like, no, it's okay. I want the baby now. Like she changed her mind, and she clearly doesn't.
Right.
Or she doesn't want to stay with him with the baby.
That had to have been hard for the actress who plays Laura to even act in real life, because she was pregnant in real life, and that's why they wrote that storyline in that way too.
Yeah.
So it was good. It was a good episode. I like the stuff that, you saw Abby being manipulative here. You knew that once she read that book and got it to a publisher, she knew Gary wasn't going to be happy. She was forcibly putting that wedge in there. And Lily Mae is like, oh, okay. Blah.
She sees it. Lily Mae sees it as a chance to piggyback off of Val's fame.
Right. Yeah. As always. As always.
When Abby says, if I copy it, she'll never know that I read it. And I'm like, that's a lot of pages to copy in 1981. It's not like you can scan it.
They probably didn't have those feeder copier machines back then. You know what I mean? You had to put it one by one on that copier and scan it. Oh, boy.
That would have took like 3 hours.
Exactly. She would have paid Eric down across the street a nickel to go do it for her, since she used him for babysitting for free, it seemed like. That's funny.
So the next episode, I know Lynn said was a filler episode, Silver Shadows. And I guess it is, but I kind
Oh,
of
is that the
think
one
it
with the
adds to the methanol story because Abby kind of sees it as a way to get money to invest into
Right.
the
This is the
methanol
older
company.
gentleman having a fascination with Abby's.
I love his butler or whatever you want to call him, who's just pretty much like the face was, girl, you ain't get my money. Like the face, I was like, ooh, girl, you are
And she
trying
made
to
no
get in
qualms
on
about it.
his.
She's like, I want the money. If he gives it to me, it's mine.
Mm-hmm. The
And
only
he
notes
should,
I had down about this episode was Kenny and Ginger are there for the purpose of Charleston dancing, and that's it.
Kenny must have wrote the episode.
He didn't. I don't know who wrote that one. It wasn't someone from the cast.
If I was that writer, if I was him, I'd be like, know what this episode's missing? A little more Kenny.
Abby also meets an engineer named Larry, who it's weird because she has her sights on him to, I guess, like seduce him into investing into the company, I think.
Right.
But she also kind of like side eyes Karen when Karen goes to the party with him.
Uh-huh.
She's like, he's mine. Like all the men are Abby's. Nobody can touch them.
Even the ones that are unavailable, she's like, that's mine.
There's a lot of truth to that. She claims them all.
Yeah.
Marks her territory.
So the next one is Letting Go, and this one made me cry.
Oh, it must have the home movies in it.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
The Sid
Oh,
home
we forgot to mention that Uncle Joe is now in town.
I was gonna say
Uncle
he
Joe.
comes and this guy that Karen's seen's trying to get her to go away for the weekend, and so that's what she's struggling with and feeling a lot of guilt with. And for whatever reason, Uncle Joe decides to drag out the home movies, and we see a lot of stuff with Sid. I think again, just for people's curiosity, I think they filmed all this stuff back on episode 2 while Don Murray was still on the show as Sid.
I thought about that. I wondered if he came back to film those scenes or if
I don't think so. I think they filmed it all then because on episode 2, when Sid dies and they did the sad closing credits with the slowed down, not sounding music, and it was a silhouette of Sid and Michael by the ocean. And I'm like, they filmed all that stuff at the same time is what they did because they knew they were going to pull that out later.
I liked Karen's kind of like spiritual philosophy. She got nothing from going to the cemetery. She's like, you're not here. I could talk to you at home. Like, I'm not.
This was the.
She even was like, goodbye, Stone.
Yeah. This was the episode where in real life, Michelle Lee and James Ferrantino, who was on Dynasty at the time, were getting divorced. They had been married for 15, 16 years. So she talked to the writers, and poignantly, that was the first time she in real life took off her red wedding ring as well, too. So they would tap into those actors, their lives, and kind of pull some of those elements into. That's why that show feels so real to a lot of us, because they did take a lot of real life elements and interweave it in there, just like I had mentioned Laura's pregnancy, and they wrote that in and stuff like that too. So that was kind of a big thing. Michelle Lee's talked about that in different interviews, and that's what was going on with her. And it was a good turning moment for Karen, where it was finally shown the audience she was going to finally move on.
Yes. And then I feel like the show, when we start after this episode, kind of starts to go full on soap.
Right. So, because this also in this, in this episode, this is the one where Abby and Val are having a little bit of an exchange, and Val says to Abby, I got to keep an eye on you. And Abby says, how else you going to learn? So she was kind of starting to expose her claws a little bit, and Val was really like, can I handle her?
So the next episode is Expose, and a publisher wants to publish Val's manuscript.
Yes. You're right. This is where they just turn on the soap dial and they start really putting on the gas.
And Gary is not happy about it because it's clearly about the Ewings. The names have just been changed. Like, I think Uncle Joe is like talking about CR instead of JR.
Yep.
there's an episode later where they talk about Sue Ellen, and it's like we gotta change the name so we don't get sued. We need to be just close enough that but farther enough away that we can't be sued.
It was interesting seeing how Val could feel Gary's body language when he stayed up all night reading the book, and she comes downstairs and she's like, "Oh, you read it," and she goes to hug him and kiss him, and he's just like stone cold to her, and it's like, ugh.
I just like when he pisses her off and she's like, "Know what?
Yeah, that was amazing in there. And again, Lily Mae's so excited for her that she did it, but yeah, she just signs the papers.
That is a me. I would have been like, "Oh, you tell me I can't publish this? All right, we'll see about that."
But again, they're fighting because Val had kind of put the brakes down on Gary and Abby spending so much time together, and Gary tried to do it, and right away Abby manipulated the situation that they had to go out of town and it had to be that night, and that's what kind of pissed Val off. And she's like, "Okay, you're not going to stick to your agreement, then I'm not either." And she doesn't even discuss it with him and signs the papers for the publisher.
I was like, "Go girl, go."
Yep. There are moments throughout this where I kind of feel like Gary has a lot of Richard qualities where it's almost like he doesn't want Val to be successful. He just wants her to be the housewife. He just wants her to be home when he gets home.
Which is a JR trait. It's a very JR trait.
He's also very much, okay, I don't really want you at the moment, Valine, but I want you when Abby doesn't want me.
Which is the JR trait.
And I hate
Which
that.
Also isn't very true because he gets a little weird. He's like basically just standing at the window, watching Abby like go on dates and like.
Right.
I was like, dude,
Stalker.
Your wife's right there watching you stare at the neighbor across the street, and you're just
he runs out of the house.
What's wrong?
And she doesn't think he's having an affair. Are you kidding?
Well, she's in a lot of denial. Unfortunately, Val's coping skills aren't the best right away. That's why like on the pilot episode, she says to Gary that first night that they're in bed in their house, "I don't think we should live here." And it's like she sees that there's too much temptation, but it's like there's really going to be temptation no matter where you're at.
No matter where they went.
Exactly. Should we go on?
So this is also the episode where the prostitute that Richard had to put in the shower because she was unconscious kind of does an expose.
Thank you.
On a TV series.
Yep.
And she had the audio recording of Richard basically saying what he does for the law firm. And so he loses his job.
Yep. Again, the spiral is happening big time for Richard at this stage of the game.
I do feel bad. I do feel bad for him there because he's just wanting to be. He's needing approval. Somewhere in his life growing up, he wasn't getting approval. So now he's like overly trying to get approval from the higher ups, and they don't care about Richard. That's why they're having him do it so that he's the scapegoat.
Exactly.
Is this also the episode where Laura moves out, or is that the next one?
It's the next one. It's night, episode 19.
She moves out at night? Okay.
Yes.
So I feel that's probably like his breaking point between the job and his wife leaving him, who's pregnant.
Right.
And taking
you would think
child.
the breaking point would be your wife not loving you and you losing your job, but Yeah.
So should we are we chatting about night now and the whole premise behind that one?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So this is Richard unraveling, and basically, I don't know, maybe you're right, Tommy. Maybe she did leave at the end of the previous episode, but I feel like she came back in this episode, or she was in the house and he was trying to keep her there, and he had Jason there. Maybe she had moved out at the end of the tail end of the previous episode, and she came back to the house.
Because he picked Jason up from karate.
Right,
and then
exactly. That's right. She had to go to the house, and he's bought this elaborate train set, and his son is playing with that, and he's trying to pretend like they're a big happy family. He gives Laura a box with a fur coat inside of it, and she's like, "I'm not coming back to you." And then all of a sudden, he produces a gun, and he's like, "You're not going anywhere."
The people on this cul-de-sac gets held hostage
This is almost 1 year ago since the last hostage situation. This episode, though, I will say, and why I feel it's so good, is it was written by John Flechette, who plays Richard. So he really got to write a lot of key points of this downward spiral of Richard, and it kind of culminated in this episode.
Yeah.
Because then he won't let anybody in. They're having an argument. Karen and Val and Gary can hear it outside.
Okay,
And
that's something I want to talk about. How did the whole neighborhood hear them fighting in their house?
It's a small cul-de-sac.
I can't hear my neighbors, and I'm in a duplex.
They don't have insulation in California because they don't need it. It's quite warm.
It's quite warm here too. They're in the kitchen. Like if they're in the living room, okay, maybe by the door, okay, maybe. But they're in the kitchen,
right?
And can hear Richard and Laura. I'm like, no. And then Valine and no, I couldn't. That got me.
And then Valine sends Gary around the back, and he goes around the back, and Karen's trying to call, and the phone's ringing, and then. And then I'm trying to remember, does Laura let Gary
gets in the house?
Yes.
Yeah. And then that's how they find out he has a gun.
That's right. Richard comes downstairs and he's got the gun by his side and he's like, "Get out, Gary. It's none of your business." And that's when Richard goes outside. But then doesn't Laura finally answer the phone because it's driving her crazy from ringing so much? And she picks it up. And Karen's like, "Laura," and then Richard's on the other line. He's like, "Leave it alone,
fine.
Karen.
Everything's fine."
Yep. And she wants to talk to him so bad, but then they call the police, and into the cul-de-sac come the cops.
And then Karen's like, "You don't need to be here. You're just going to make it worse. What are you going to do? Call a sniper?" And the cop is like, "Already did."
Realistically, would they call that many cops for something they don't really even know what's going on? Because they got the SWAT team out.
They know that cul-de-sac.
Maybe because he had a gun and there was hostages, so to speak.
Right. Okay. And there's a kid inside the house too. They're probably going to take this all very seriously.
Which I know it's a TV show. I know.
Right.
You know.
I will say my heart did kind of break for Richard when he came out and he put the gun to his head.
That was pretty traumatic.
And he kept clicking it.
Yeah.
He's lucky they didn't shoot at him when he started to lift the gun.
And he kept clicking it to show the cops, I think, that the gun wasn't loaded since they all had snipers on them and stuff like that. And Richard's like, Karen's yelling, trying to save them, and they're grabbing Karen. But it was like, that's how spiraled out of control he was. Which
that kind of got me too. Karen trying to be protective and like screaming to like.
Yeah, we get to see that Karen-Richard relationship where they're kind of trying to have each other's backs. Karen, I think, more so for Richard.
I think it's
an underdog.
To losing Sid. Like now, she doesn't want to lose anyone else she cares about.
Exactly, and she said that to him when they were on the phone. She goes, "It's like a death, isn't it?" You know, because he's talking about Laura leaving him, and Karen's relating her own life to him. That was again such a good, poignant scene between that. So Richard fans out there, we're trying to give the Richard love and say we do recognize, kind of what he was going through mental state wise.
When he's not a complete ass or prick or whatever you want to call it, he's not bad.
Yeah.
I definitely will say that I like him the most in season 4.
I like him a lot.
Season 4, he has moments.
Yeah, you're right. I like him a lot. I like what they did towards the end of season 3 with him to help you understand him better in season 4. Definitely.
So the next episode is called Acts of Love. And Richard's in a facility.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And Karen goes to visit him.
With
Laura or on her own?
She asked Laura to go see him, so Laura goes on her own separate visit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say they do make Laura seem a little cold, but I get where she's coming from too. Like she's trying to move on.
She is.
And she's getting wrapped.
I have moments where I'm annoyed with Karen because Laura is her friend too.
Yeah.
And Laura has a lot of trauma from this relationship, and I just feel like she's forcing Laura to stay in a toxic relationship.
Like, it took Laura a long time to be able to say, "You know what? I'm leaving. This isn't healthy.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't good.
Right.
You know, I'm leaving." And then her deciding to move back in there at the end, I was like, "Oh no." I've been in the relationship where you go back thinking, "No, it'll be better."
Right.
You're helping and it's not. It's really not.
And it's because I guess we're jumping ahead a little bit. It's because she finds a letter. No, it's fine. It's because she finds a letter that says that next time he'll load the gun.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I don't like that. Like, if you need help, ask for it, definitely. I don't like the concept of somebody feeling like they can't move on because you might hurt yourself, because now you're trapping that person.
Been there.
And that's
not me writing the letter, but I've had some,
Right, no, exactly.
So I
ask for help.
There
has to be clear boundaries where you're not taking advantage of the person.
Mm-hmm. It's hard sometimes for people, though, to set up those boundaries and realize I can't be all of your happiness. You know what I mean? You have to be able to be self-sufficient and carry on with your life too. So I get where Laura's feeling a lot of guilt, because she's feeling like if she does sever from him, she's going to feel guilty that he took his own life. So it's a lot of turmoil for her. And again, she's dealing with a pregnancy at the time too.
And sometimes there's that manipulation. Richard had to know that Laura would come back if she'd found something like that. Right. I don't think he wanted her to find it, because he did throw it in the trash.
Right. But still.
But, that could have just been his way of writing, like, therapists tell you write things out, get things, maybe that was his way of doing that, but just reading into stuff that I don't know about. But
this is also the episode.
Go for it, Tommy.
Where Al leaves town with Olivia.
Right, because Gary and Abby have to work late, so Val's like, I'm babysitting you. Come on, we're gonna go for a drive.
Can you imagine, like, just the anxiety I get watching episodes like this? You're in a restaurant, you look in your purse, your your money's not there. You don't have cell phones. No. It's like, oh my God, what do I do?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy to think just how different the world, like, to experience that world like that would be.
Right.
Because I don't really remember.
Val has that backstory that she was a waitress, so she just put on that apron and she went right to work.
It was like she stepped into a role and she was just like, oh, shook it, da-da-da. Here's your, I was like, get it, girl.
The guy that
However, I don't know how it was in the 80s, but I do feel like you wouldn't just stay at some random stranger's house that happens to be in a restaurant.
No, I wouldn't assume so either.
I mean, I would just be like, we gonna stay in my car. I feel it's safer.
Yeah.
Because she just puts Olivia in that room. Who knows there's not some crazy axe murderer or something worse in that room just hiding out waiting.
She looked at him and knew he was Enos from the Dukes of Hazzard, because that's who that actor was. And she was okay with it.
And Gary finds out that Val is stuck and she can't come home, and he takes this opportunity to finally sleep with Abby.
Yes, because he hears the message that Val's not going to make it home that night. But meanwhile, Lily Mae's got her nose to that window, seeing Gary's car across the cul-de-sac, and knows exactly where he is all night.
Okay. I'm not trying to say if you're going to cheat. These cheaters on Knox Landing are the stupidest people ever. Oh, here, we're just at a barbecue with all of our friends. I'm going to kiss up all on you. Yeah. Richard with Abby.
Yeah.
We're just going to leave my car across the street because my wife's not there. But, we don't have 4 other neighbors.
Right.
And my mother-in-law's not across the street, probably looking like, because I know I would have been.
He could have at least parked the car at his own house. That way it would have had some mystery.
And then could have just been like, Lily Mae, I just went for a run in your suit. Yes, I like to run in my suit, Lily Mae.
UBC.
It's the gospel truth. Leave me alone.
But then he comes home the next day early enough that he beats Val home, who Val comes home and she's like, I'm sorry, we argued. And she hugs him. And Lily Mae just stands there and watches him hugging. And Gary like can't even give eye contact to Lily Mae. And I'm like, ooh.
See, this is when I like Lily Mae. When she
yes.
I really like her in these last few episodes when she's holding Gary like, you're gonna come to this dinner because I saw some butterflies.
Yep. Exactly.
Just the way she and then she just when they're sitting at the lunch count like one, or did she count down or count up? I think she counted down. She's like 10.
I think she was like, there's 1 and there's 2.
Yeah. Well, she was given like I bet you 10 seconds later, just keep watching. And they're all like, it's in small towns, I could see that happening, but in cities like Los Angeles,
right?
It just seems really weird. You would find the perfect time, which I know it's television. I gotta stop doing that.
It's TV soap. This is what you live for. So let's jump into episode 21, China Dolls. This
China
is
Dolls,
where Gary and Abby's affair is becoming a lot more public, and Laura
it didn't take long
blaming herself for Richard's illness, basically.
And this is the episode where Gary's basically standing at the window staring at Abby's house.
Right, because he's trying to break up with her because Karen knows what's going on. And Karen's like threatened to tell Val. And Gary's like, just stay out of it, Karen. And
well,
she's like, Val's my friend.
I was about to call him Uncle Cooper. It's a One Tree Hill thing. Uncle Joe learns that everyone has learned about this affair.
Yeah, the whole cul-de-sac knows. Even Diana kind of knows.
Val's just going, my husband's going crazy looking out the window.
This is where the epic scene happens where Val goes stomping her feet across the street to Abby's.
Because Lily Mae keeps saying there's a storm coming. So when Val does go across the cul-de-sac, you can hear the thunder clouds going above.
I live for those moments where someone's like walking across, like,
iconic.
It was an interesting outfit choice too. The dress was very like country, and she had like her cowgirl boots on.
Which
and
is
she
Val.
She's just a good girl from Tennessee.
Let alone, it was very iconic to see Abby in her pink terry cloth robe, because if you've watched any parodies on YouTube, that's iconic too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Tommy, we should recreate the Val walk storming across the cul-de-sac when we go to Knox Landing.
You have to get a country dress and some cowgirl boots.
Well, I got the boots.
And I'll wear the terry cloth.
I'm gonna do the setup right now, and one of you guys deliver the line. But basically, Val confronts Abby and says, "Are you sleeping with my husband?" And what does Abby say back?
I'm not saying that I am, but I'm not saying that I'm not. Something like that.
Tommy, do you remember?
I am saying that I could have him anytime I want.
And then she kind of, Val's in shock, and she turns around and goes to the door. And then Abby again, she's like, "Does that answer your question?"
And she turns around and slap.
Awesome. It was
I was like,
Abby almost fell over. It was obviously that hard.
I was like, ooh, good soap slap. Good one.
And then Karen and Laura are getting ready to bring Richard home, I believe.
Right. So
and
Karen asks,
she asked Abby to what are the plans?
Right. And then so she says, do you remember what she said here too? It was good.
There was a line, and I can't remember what it was.
She says she asked Abby to watch Richard's plans, and Abby kind of rebuffs it, and then Karen says, "Yeah, she's only good at wrecking homes, not fixing them." And so Abby feels guilty and does go to water the plants.
Mm-hmm. And a cute outfit with her short shorts.
Oh, just kind of short shorts. So
Donna Mills has this strut about her where she kind of puts her hands in her pocket and she kind of just like.
I would just slap.
Yeah.
And Gary's got his.
And Gary once again is staring out the window.
Yep.
And he goes over there and he kind of makes the decision to continue the affair with Abby.
He can't stop.
He's an addict. Sex.
Oh, I totally thought they were what they were going to do. I mean, who wouldn't?
They did on that ugly couch that Aaron doesn't like of Richard and Laura's is where they did it, probably.
Well, that damn couch is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. One, it's green. Two, you don't. No. I mean, I think it goes Couch Aaron Molly's name.
Oh man, that's good.
And that's the gospel truth.
That's the gospel fucking truth. I added to it.
Oh, funny. All right. Are we on the last episode of the season?
Yes. And
We
before I forget,
are.
my favorite part about this episode is when Gary's banging on the door, and in between, it's like Valine.
We gotta talk now.
I'm like, why don't you just yell Val? Why do you gotta go back and forth?
So we kind of mentioned some things from this episode already. You mentioned
the butterflies.
The girls are out for lunch and the butterflies, and they see Gary and Abby leave an apartment building.
And Lily Mae
the episode
goes.
starts out with Val and Lily Mae talking about the possibility that he's having an affair, and Val just does not want to believe it or think about it.
Trying to keep the blinders on.
She got those Aaron goggles on. That's what I call them.
It's almost like everybody's telling you, and you're just like, nope, it's not real.
There.
This is also the episode where Laura's bringing Richard food, and that's when she finds the crumpled up note, because he's been like disappeared. Like he left his sprinklers going, and everybody in the neighborhood's wondering, where's Richard? Where's Richard?
Oh, wait. I have a quick question. Mainly because this whole episode before was named China Doll. We get one. Is there more to the China Doll?
Well,
because they named
the patients in the hospitals said something about China dolls.
There is
Richard said they're all China dolls.
Because the original title was Obsessions or something, which to me makes more sense because Gary's obsessed with
Abby.
Yeah. But China Dolls, we break one, and that's like, ooh, we broke this China doll that this patient gave to Laura to give to Richard. Let's name the episode it.
I think there was also a reflection, though, of what was happening with Abby and Val. And like that was a shattering point for Val having the realization that her husband is cheating with Abby, because Abby, in not so many words, is just flat out telling her.
Okay, I just didn't read that much into it.
That I think is the symbolism that's going in. That's how I read it.
I was trying to, kept waiting for something else to drop about the China doll. My soap opera mind said there was more to it.
Right.
And this patient had done something to the China doll that would do.
Hence why
Val's kind of having a.
Go ahead.
Val's kind of having a power struggle with her editor.
Right. Mm-hmm. And they want to have a cocktail party to kind of promote the book, to get it. Are they trying to get it sold here? Is it sold? I think it is, like with the book cover that she didn't care for and stuff like that.
I'm with her. That cover was god awful. I wouldn't have bought it.
Capricorn
Crew wanted to try and sell books.
The name, I was like, I wish they would have just made fun and called it Dallas or oil, huh?
Isn't crude oil?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
So another way to attach it to the Ewings without attaching it to the Ewings.
Exactly.
The cover just looked like it's supposed to be a trashy romance novel. Nothing wrong with trashy romance novels. I love them.
But this is the party that they're having, the cocktail party that Val wants Gary to be at. And Gary's like, I don't want to be at. And Lily Mae's like, you're going to be at that. And we're going to get your students into the butterflies. On and on and on. Yep, exactly. But this is also the episode where now they're constantly hooking up, Gary and Abby, at Abby's friend's apartment, and just not hiding it so much. They're doing it at noon, so Val obviously is taking her nap during that time, and she's not going to know what's going on, but whatever.
I love how close the hotel is to the apartment.
Right.
Like,
at first I was like, when they first got the apartment, so to speak, I thought it was just like a weird hotel. And then I was like, oh, maybe the party is at the same hotel that the room is in, and that's why they get there so fast.
Right.
We've watched too much Days of Our Lives where everyone lives in a hotel.
This is also the one where Diana's trying to be an adult, and she wants her mom to tell her, who's sleeping with who? Mother, I'm going to college in the fall.
No, see, this is where my family would differ, where my mom would go, let me tell you. My mom would have told me.
But then Diana figures it out when Olivia says, "Oh, this is Gary's calculator. He's over here quite a bit, blah, blah, blah." And then Abby comes home as Diana's babysitting Olivia and hugs Olivia. And Diana's just staring at her with a weird smile. And Abby's like,
my only thing with that being the reason Diana it clicked for her is those neighbors are always at each other's houses.
true.
It would seem common that Gary would be there quite a bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Gary and Abby work together. Of course, they probably, on a side business that they wouldn't do during their normal 8 to 5.
but I think Diana knows Abby quite well, too. And she was putting 2 and 2 together going,
Oh, yeah.
I can see my aunt chasing after the guy who's got money attached to his name.
She has a moment at the party where she's like, I guess now I know, to Karen. And
Yeah.
Karen's just like, oh boy.
Imagine the days where you had to, there was one phone there and they're like, well, I'll keep calling home. And it's like,
Oh my gosh, when Laura did the "Hey Dad, hang on, someone's on the other line" and had to hold it, I remember being a little kid and them having to do that to get to the other line.
yep.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
Yeah,
cool.
so
Waiting
Richard
back
tries to
in
get
the
his old
day.
job back.
Funny.
And there was a nice moment with Laura kind of sticking up for him, saying, you don't want to work
I
for
liked
this
when
guy."
Laura was shady to the law guy. I was like, you don't want to work here, Richard.
Mhm.
Pretty much. I was like, yes. Because he's kind of like, well.
But going back to Richard leaving the sprinkler on, that was the scene where it was flooding into the street.
Right.
And Lily Mae's talking to the boys. She's like, turn the sprinklers off. And then she's like, you be sweet. And she goes into that.
Exactly. She did say that. You're right.
The adult Aaron is like, wait, isn't California always in a drought? So Richard just left his,
He left his garage open, the sprinkler on, and the front door wasn't locked.
Richard's the reason why we're in this, California's always in this drought, huh? I'm blaming Richard.
So I feel like to give Kenny and Ginger a scene, Laura kind of stops over at their house and says she's coming back home and asks them to help move her back home. So they had something to do.
Did you see the way Ginger was carrying that baby? The head was like this.
Yeah.
It was a real baby.
I remember that. I was like, support the head.
Yeah.
I was just like, I thought, maybe the baby's fake. I was like, maybe it's one of those fake dolls. But then you'd see it move. I'm like, that baby's not fake.
Right.
Aaron Mommy's gonna have problems.
Something else I noticed, I think Richard offered Laura a glass of wine when he was holding her hostage.
That was a very 80s thing. They were still doing that.
Well, in the second she was drinking.
I think it was because I asked John the same question. He's like, I think back then they only recommended you had no more than this or something.
Right.
But it was a different time. The stroller. I know we're talking about random stuff now. When she pushed in that stroller, I had to pause and say, John, look at this stroller. It's all metal. I'm like, oh my gosh, how crazy is this?
Yep.
That's the one thing I love about watching shows like this far back. I love seeing how far we've come.
Well, you'll see plenty of Knots Landing multiple times where they put the car seat's right in the front seat facing the dash. It's like, wow.
We're like, how did we make it to
Valine's, I almost called her Valerie. Valine's editor gets the job in New York, but he hires Uncle Joe as the West Coast editor. So he's going to help Val edit her book.
I wish that's just how we got jobs nowadays.
You're right.
Get a party.
Karen goes to find Gary at the apartment, and Val sees her leave and runs after her.
Yes.
And that's
she's like, Mama, where did Karen go? I don't know. Yes, you do, Mama. And she takes off.
And she's just
okay. Gary was looking good in those shorts. I was like, okay, Gary.
I think that must have spoiler alerted out somehow because those blue shorts are trademarked for the next several seasons.
I love that picture. Those need to make a comeback.
I love the picture, the promotional picture of him in those blue shorts.
Right.
And Abby in her nightie and Val in the red dress.
Yes. Iconic.
I need us to bring back short shorts. I love short shorts. Oh my god! I mean, I wear them myself. I wear them in the house. But
I call them boom booms.
So yeah, there you go. Yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, Aaron, you tell me. I don't know how much you had known about this scene, but like, were you shocked when Karen did show up and she's like, "Come on, Gary, get dressed. Let's go to the party." And Gary's like being cocky towards her, and then all of a sudden Val walks up and sees them all dressed the way they are. Were you a little bit like, or did you see it coming?
I was kind of expecting. I mean, that's a typical soap thing. Like, if one person has the big reveal, it's like, okay, everyone's getting the big reveal.
Yeah.
Something that Aaron probably doesn't remember, and obviously other people don't know. I actually showed Aaron this episode when he came to New York to visit.
Okay.
But he wasn't really feeling it because he didn't know the characters, and I was like, I guess you kind of have to know the characters to be.
I remember. Oh my god! I remember thinking, oh my god,
he's having this deja vu moment right now.
I was like, this is the show my mom used to watch. That I just did not care for. Like, it'd be like, oh, we got to watch this Thursday.
Aaron's too scared to go. I don't like it.
And now I love it. Oh my gosh.
That's funny. Wow.
So this was actually the first exposure to Knots Landing. That scene,
right?
I couldn't sleep. It was like 2:00 in the morning, and I saw that end scene, and I was like, what's going on here?
Right.
And then they aired the season 4 premiere right after it, and I was like, oh, and I was recording it because it was on at like 2 in the morning. And that's how I got hooked on Knots.
That's an awesome backstory. Yeah, very
I
cool.
totally forgot.
So I like how Val gets
like,
angry.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I love how Val gets angry, just drives right home. Meanwhile, Kenny and Ginger are unpacking Laura, and Kenny kind of hears the car screech in the cul-de-sac and just looks over his shoulder. And Val,
Kenny kind of has this like, what the hell's going on there moment.
Exactly. But Val's like very angry and just Lego woman walking in the house and going upstairs and throwing her stuff in the suitcase.
I love that she triple locked it. She's like, you ain't getting in.
Yep. She definitely
I like the minute that she had clarification. She was like, I'm done. I'm moving out.
Yep, she was. It was a turn point for her. She did a 180.
I don't like is the women move out of these houses. I'd be like, you cheated, you get the fuck out. Sorry, I've lived with my mom too long.
It's all good.
You might get a moment like that in season 4.
Okay, I better because I don't like it. Yeah, the men's doing all the wrong.
How awkward! Lily Mae is still living there with Gary.
that's Val's way of punishing. He's like, know what? You get Mama,
and sing for him too while you're there, Mama.
And I left whatever she has there. Yeah. So have fun.
Yep, exactly.
And my book's still being published.
Oh my God. I thought it was great when she just opened the door, leaves it wide open, walks out to the car, throws her suitcase in and starts driving away. And he's trying to chase after her. And he's like, he is one of those people, he had to hit rock bottom. And right there, he kind of did. And he's just sitting there in the cul-de-sac calling her name. And then it goes dark.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was a great ending.
It was. Very soapy editing, very what's going to happen next, very pull the audience in. They'll come back in the fall and see what happens.
Yeah.
But that's episode 4.
So this is kind of exciting. This will maybe give a little backstory to people watching. This is the show that kind of made me start reaching out to these two characters that I'm chatting with tonight, because Aaron was at a bookstore or whatever it was, Second and Charles, was it, Aaron?
That's correct. Feel free to sponsor us, Second and Charles. We're taking sponsorship.
There you go. So he gets a hold of a used copy of the first season of Knots Landing, and I see this on Twitter, and I write him, and I'm like, oh my God, you're going to love this show. And I'm just sending this to Queers and Soaps, and I don't know if Aaron's responding back or Tommy is, but it was Aaron, and I'm like, I love this show. You're going to love it. And you did. You dived in, and you kind of fell into it quickly, and then the three of us all started talking about it, and it just kind of
for the first season to be very standalone episodes, kind of like how Melrose Place was.
Right.
I didn't mind Knox standalone episodes, whereas Melrose Place's standalone episodes are kind of like, okay,
Right.
When does Heather Locklear get here? What time she get here?
So now the funny thing is like they only released, unfortunately, Warner Brothers. I don't know why. You can write to any of us and tell us why. You can write here and tell us why.
I think it's money issue.
Well, I think it probably is, but like Aaron, you've now seen season 1 and 2, and you were fortunate enough to see season 3. Could you imagine not have seen season 3, knowing what you know now, and what a disappointment and letdown that would be to be in the dark about it?
I would have already posted a tweet tagging Warner Brothers with hashtag salty life.
I like it. I like it. I like it. Well, people, write Warner Brothers and let them know you want to see it if you haven't seen it. So, and if you want to see it, this little website or this little Twitter feed here always does little on this day episodes of Not Sleeping. So it's not in chronological order, but it is in order of what happened or what aired on that date. You can kind of piece some things together if you've watched it before, or relive some of those memories. But I'm hoping everybody.
So let's rate the season. How would you guys rate the season?
Aaron?
8.
Okay.
I mean, I flew through it. That's how I can tell if a season I think is really good.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
I paused a little bit around cricket, but that's just because, but then I picked back up. But still, I'd give it an 8. I'm
probably right there with him too, and I'd give it an 8 because I was also thinking about a letter grade, and I was like, I'd give it a B+. I'm not going to give it an A-, but I thought there was a lot of deep things. This whole season to me was about 3 things: Karen's new journey, the dissolvement of Richard and Laura, and then the triangle of Val, Abby, and Gary. And they told it really well. There was some filler ones there that we've talked about and called out, but I thought they had really 3 big poignant things. And that's why I felt like season 3 was a lot better than season 2, because they really went deep on these characters and we got to understand a little bit better and thus feel more compassion towards them and want to know more.
I'm guessing Ginger gave up her teaching career.
Yeah, for a music career.
Our music career.
Sing a song 3 times. Tommy, what'd you rate it?
I think an 8 is a fair number grade.
Yep.
And I would give it a B+.
Yep. Cool.
Just because I know there's better. It gets a lot better.
Yeah.
So there's still lots of twists and turns to come.
Exactly.
All I know is I'm always da 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 da.
Oh, me too. I was doing that today. Especially after Lynn made the promo. I was just like,
yes. Had to have that music in there. That's too funny.
That's when you know a theme song's good, is when it doesn't have lyrics and you're still just da 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 da.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so glad you guys enjoyed it, and I know it pulled you in a lot pretty well this time, Aaron. You kind of paused a couple times when you were watching season 2, but you made it through. And this one was even like 5 or 6 episodes longer, but boy, you saw that pickup really start to happen on the back end, and they started to serialize it more, and you knew something was going to happen with Gary and Val. And even the actors in the show, Joan Van Ark and Ted Shackelford, pushed the writers and wanted that to happen. They're like, no, you have to do something to break these 2 up, because they're so Romeo and Juliet. They need to have that heartache, and it needs to break apart, and Abby's the perfect person.
Yeah. But all right, guys, thanks for joining us for season 3 of Knots Landing.
Yay!
Check us out on all the socials at Queers and Soaps. And I believe next week we are going to be talking about the OC Chrismica episode, which is season 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this weekend we might do a review of A Very Salem Christmas.
What?
As a bonus episode.
How exciting.
Very
Talk
cool.
about such fun stuff.
Don't you guys have a release on deck for tomorrow too happening?
Tomorrow is a Watch Family Christmas, yes.
Mm-hmm. With our friend Dawn, who came on Saturday.
That one had to be pre-recorded because, this isn't our full-time gig.
And I have a work Christmas party, so we still wanted to deliver the episode, so we pre-recorded it.
Because that's how much we love you all. No, we do love you.
Well, happy holidays, guys.
Yeah, happy holidays.
And until next time, bye.
Bye.